What's up, guys? It's TechnoViking23 coming to you today with some Destiny. We are going to be playing Destiny, but I'm actually going to be talking about a different subject. We're going to be talking about maybe a little bit of a social commentary, I guess, on the state of gaming right now. This is something I've been wanting to kind of talk about for a while, and was just kind of putting my thoughts together, making some notes on some things, and just wanted to put together a decent video. But what I want to talk about today is basically the generational gap we have in gamers and whether or not that is starting to basically ruin the gaming industry and just ruin gaming in general. Now what I'm talking about is if you ever watch a lot of YouTube videos, I watch a ton of gaming videos on YouTube, and I'm starting to notice that a lot of the commentators, a lot of the people that are making videos on YouTube, they're either in their very late teens, 18, 19 years old, some even younger than that, or they're in their early to mid 30s. There seems to be, like I said, a generational gap there between the people who are putting together content for gaming and also just gamers in general. There's a large influx of young players and young people in games these days. That's why you're seeing so many games go the T for teen route. You have all these mobile games out now, which are all the rage. And it seems to me, of course, everybody, if you were around back in the 80s, there was the big, the gaming crash, and gaming wasn't real popular for a little while, so a lot of people were turned off to it. But it just seems that gamers like myself, mid 30s, we grew up back in the golden age with the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and all that stuff. It just seems like we are getting fewer and far between. And also, it seems that companies are making a concentrated effort to kind of phase us out in general in terms of the games they're making nowadays. But another interesting fact, that kind of leads me to think about this is, they're already projecting, with stock market and finances and things like that. And in 2015, mobile games are actually going to exceed all the revenue and all the money made. Value of the console market by a large margin. So mobile games on your cell phone, on your tablet, those are now all the rage. They're going to be making more money than actual console games are. They're projected to have another 40 billion in market share by the year 2017. So mobile games already account for almost 20% of global revenue, which is just absolutely crazy. So it's kind of interesting, really, how that works out. But, it's interesting because there's phones and there's tablets now. Those seems to be the gaming medium, and it's very easily accessible for younger kids. For parents, it's kind of a cheaper mobile babysitter, if you will. A lot of parents these days are using video games as kind of the babysitter in the house. Here, play your Xbox all day and just leave me alone. It's kind of the attitude we see from a lot of parents these days. But phones and tablets make that so much easier. And, I drive by a middle school, actually, every day on my way home from work. Sometimes, I'll go out during lunch as well and drive past the same school. And you'll see the kids walking around, getting on the bus, waiting for their parents. Every single one of these middle school kids has a smartphone, and they are nose deep in it. They're not talking to their friends. They're not, conversing with adults. They're not talking with anybody around them. They're buried in the smartphone playing some game or texting or who knows what, but more than likely they're playing some silly game like Candy Crush or some other mindless mobile game. And that's what these mobile games are. They're very simple. They're just mindless. It's something to pass the time with. And they are chock full of microtransactions, which for some odd reason, parents don't seem to be opposed to paying for their kids. They let them buy all the stuff in the game. And it's a model we're starting to see creep into our video games now, is this microtransaction thing. But it's just the mobile game thing it's crazy because you remember the Super Bowl this year. We're talking about a company that makes these mindless games on a cell phone, and they're mindless, repetitive. There's really no content in them. It's just something to kill some time with, and they have enough money to hire an A-list actor in Liam Neeson. We all know Liam Neeson, one of the most badass actors of all time in his action movies, and they have enough money to hire him and put him in a Super Bowl ad on Super Bowl Sunday, which in itself costs a crap ton of money. And the mobile gaming companies have this kind of money to put these ads on during primetime weekends on NFL and things like that. You don't see the consoles or the you know, you don't see the console companies, you don't see any of the major games anymore really doing this, but yet a mobile game has that kind of money. So very, very interesting. And again, that just lends a little bit more to the theory that that's where the money is at. And companies are starting to realize this. I think Activision already has realized this with Call of Duty a few years ago. And I think a lot of other companies are now starting to follow suit. It's very clearly visible. You know, you want to talk about the microtransaction thing. Just look at Mortal Kombat X, which is just released, and look at all the day one microtransactions you've got in the game. Just all this little stuff for $2.99, $3.99, $4.99. You know, it's just basic. It's just like mobile games. It's like, you know, you want an extra life, you got to pay $1.99. You hit a paywall in the game, you got to pay $2.99. Well, Mortal Kombat X, you know, oh, if fatalities are too hard for you to do, well, here, you can buy a pack of easy fatalities for $3 or $4 or whatever it is. And the concept of that, to me, is just hilarious because, you know, why would you want to make the game that easy? You know, fatalities are something that have been part of Mortal Kombat and have been frustratingly hard to do for a long time. But the satisfaction you get from mastering that aspect of the game is good. At least it used to be. And that's the kind of attitude that I think most gamers that are my age bracket, my generation, we have that satisfaction we get from being able to, you know, play the content in the game and enjoy the content in the game, and really, you know, get used to it and learn how to play it. But nowadays it's just, oh, let's just pay $2 or $3 and it'll be done for you. And that again lends itself also to this generational gap, because in society today, especially with kids, you know, everybody has to be special. Everybody has to get a participation trophy. You know, everything has to be easy for everybody. There can't be anything that's difficult or, you know, that you have to struggle through. Everybody wants it right now. You know, the kids want it right now. They don't want to work for it. And, you know, the gaming is the same thing. You know, games themselves nowadays, they're not even anywhere near as difficult as they used to be. I use Halo 4 as a good example. If you compare Halo 4 on Legendary to how Halo, you know, 2, Halo Reach, and the Halo games Bungie did versus the games 343 did, I mean, the difficulty is not even close. And everything is being watered down now. And you're seeing this in your AAA titles now, which is very concerning to me and just does not bode well for the future. And again, I use Mortal Kombat X as a great example of this. You know, the game releases day one and you've got microtransactions basically to do everything in the game. You can unlock all the extra content. You can just buy it all. It's pay to win, you know. And again, this just caters to the participation trophy generation who thinks they should just have access to all of it right away. So that really just, it's starting to irritate me a little bit, seeing the direction that gaming is going in these companies taking on this new trend. And it's kind of funny, you know, Mortal Kombat, everybody's all up in arms because it has day one DLC. And it's almost like people are conditioned to be okay with this now. You know, I remember in 2012 when Mass Effect 3 came out, they offered day one DLC. It was the, you know, they had the From the Ashes with the Prothean character. And it was like $15 on day one. And everybody threw an absolute fit. Everybody was so just up in arms about it. And the interesting thing was with Mass Effect, and this is one of the reasons I've always kind of been okay with the DLC in the Mass Effect games, is they enhance the actual game. You don't have to buy it to enjoy the game. And people were basically complaining about this add-on DLC. All it was a quick story mission and a couple of extra war assets, and it didn't add a whole lot to the game. I mean, the game on itself by its base is, you know, 60-some plus hours of content, amazing story, amazing characters, tons of replay value. And yet people back in 2012 were still willing to just get all up in arms over DLC that added and enhanced the game. That was actually good DLC, but there was obviously having it on day one was probably not the smartest idea on BioWare's part or EA's part, but we know EA doesn't care. But overall, you know, people were up in arms about a good piece of DLC content. And now today they just accept these microtransactions. They just say, oh, it's okay. Day one, you know, we'll pay $4 or $5 for all these silly little add-ons. And some of it's stuff that's been taken out of the actual game that you have to pay for and put behind a paywall, and people are just okay with it now. And I think that, again, you know, it just shows that this generation of gamers is okay with it. They don't care. You know, they don't care if their DLC is lackluster. They don't care if the games are being pieced out and parted out for them to buy more at a later date. They just don't care. And companies now see that. They see this much more simplistic model that they can use. And it's basically, we're going to put it together a big advertising campaign. We're going to hype our game up big time. We're going to get the kids hooked early. We're going to get go for the younger generation. We're going to go for the younger gamers. And we're going to get them hooked because we know their parents have the money to spend. And you know, the mid-30s gamers like myself who grew up with the good games, who are still, you know, we're kind of, you know, wondering where our great AAA titles have gone. They, you know, we're being phased out. They don't care about us anymore because the majority of us, and I'm going to use myself as an example, you know, I'm in my early 30s. I still play games quite a bit. You know, I play for a couple hours each night when I can. Obviously, I get on to make some of these videos. But the reality is, most of my friends, they don't play video games anymore. They have families, they have kids now, they have stuff they do. You know, I'm not in that boat quite yet, and you know, not sure when I will be. But I just still enjoy playing my games. But I'll be honest, a lot of my friends my age, they're not in that category anymore. And companies know that. They know that we're not the large piece of the market anymore that we used to be. You know, if you think about it, a lot of us, we grew up playing the original Halo games. Think about when that came out. That was almost 12 years ago. So it's been a long time, and now they're going for this new generation. And the mobile gaming trend has come in, and it's really added into the watering down of all these games. I mean, if you can compare some of the AAA titles that have come out, and some of the bigger games that have come out recently. Obviously, Destiny is a huge example. I use it all the time. Now, one thing I will clarify is I don't hate Destiny. I'm just very critical of Destiny because I see the potential the game has. I saw what was advertised and what this game should have been. And I'm still waiting for that whole rich cinematic storytelling part that's on the back of the game box that tells me I can become legend and have this rich cinematic story. I'm still waiting for that, and that's why I'm critical of Destiny. Destiny can be enjoyable at times. The PvP is great. It has some of the best gunplay mechanics, some of the best fundamentals at its base. And again, that's why I'm saying it's got so much potential, but it's just missed out on. And I think in part of that is Activision realizing they don't have to put all that stuff in the game anymore because the kids of the mobile gaming generation don't care. They just want to get together with their friends and shoot some aliens. They want a very simple concept. They don't want a lot of complication. They don't want a complicated story. They don't want puzzles to figure out. They don't want a renegade Paragon system they have to figure out. They just want to get online and get together with their buddies and shoot some aliens. And that's pretty much what you do in Destiny. You know, very repetitive content. I've done the video showing where the whole campaign is pretty much the same model over and over again for all of the missions. And you also got the RNG loot system, which is actually very interesting in how it works because it does cater sort of to that participation generation. There is no guaranteed way to get good loot in the game other than, you know, playing certain content, which obviously is going to give you a higher chance. But the RNG loot system pretty much assures that everybody has a chance to get loot. Like myself, for example, I am not anywhere near a hardcore player of Destiny. I play for a couple hours a night when I get a chance, maybe a little bit more on the weekends. But here's the thing. There are people who play this game for thousands of hours, and they've got all the exotics. Well, guess what? I don't play anywhere, probably not even a quarter of that, if that. I hardly, you know, like I said, compared to a lot of people, I don't play a lot of this game. But you know what? I've got pretty much all the exotics but one or two. So even though I don't play nearly as much as some of the better and the bigger players and the people who play all the time, I still have the majority of the gear that's offered in the game. The gear in Destiny is actually very easy to acquire. Then you even have Zur, who comes every week and has more exotics that you can actually buy for strange coins, and he kind of caters, you know, to those players who don't have a lot of time and caters to players who don't have the gear. So it actually, the RNG loot system in Destiny balances it out, and it really caters to that, you know, participation trophy thing where everybody's going to get something no matter what. And, you know, I get really tired of seeing people on the forums, they try to compare Destiny to an MMO. They talk about it all the time. And I have to just shake my head and say there's no way, because if you want to talk about an MMO, there is a grind just like there is in Destiny. But at the end of the day, you get something for that grind, and it's like it pays off in the end. And, you know, I'm tired of seeing people complaining about Destiny. And all that, you know, in terms of getting the loot, getting the gear, and the grind, you know, they wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real MMO. I still remember when I used to play World of Warcraft, and there was this really awesome sword that I wanted, and it took me about 3 months to actually get it, going through all the steps that I had to acquire that piece of gear. It's basically like, let's say you wanted Yallarhorn in Destiny, and the only way to get it was to go on this really long quest and find these materials and kill certain bosses, and it would just take you a while to do each step. But when I finally got that sword, you know, I'm in a PvP arena playing with some people, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, dude, where'd you get that sword? That's so cool. You know, I'm in a town walking around buying some gear. Dude, where'd you get that sword? That thing looks awesome. And you have a story behind your gear. You have, you know, you're unique. You have this item that you worked for, and you got it, and then people are asking you where you got it, telling you that it looks cool. You don't have that in Destiny because Destiny is very simple. Like I said, it's nowhere near. You don't have to put in that kind of work to get it. Everybody can get something. Everybody can have their Surge regime. Everybody can wear their Heart of Praxic Fire. And in the end, we all look the same. We all have the same gear. None of us are legend. It's a very simple, very repetitive, easy content type game. There's a reason that it's T for teen. And that's the one thing I would say is stop comparing Destiny to the MMOs because it doesn't work the same way. It's not the same type of system. You have to put a lot more work into MMOs. It's a much more complicated game. And that is pretty much it on Destiny. You think, it looks like Activision has really, Activision started this whole thing with Call of Duty, really dumbing it down and making it for every, all the player, trying to attract more newer players who might not be as skilled, dumbing down the game so that they'll be able to get it when you have the veteran players who've been with the series for a long time. They want to make sure they can compete and have an enjoyable experience. And it's really something that's really frustrating. You can see this in all the, look at Halo, for example. You take the Halo games. Halo used to have some of the best PvP of any FPS. And then what's happened in recent time is basically they've started to dumb it down quite a bit. They've started to make it a lot easier for newer players to come in and adapt to. There's not as much of a gun skill gap as there used to be. There's not as much as a map knowledge gap as there used to be. 343 really just kind of nixed all of this with Halo 4. They made all the maps very small. They gave you all the Call of Duty type loadouts and things, and basically made the game more appealing for younger players, for players who might not be fans of the series, and for players to come in and basically be able to compete with the more elite players because they've, with the longer sight lines on the small maps, they've actually neutralized a lot of the power weapons like the sword and the rocket launchers and things like that. You don't have as much prep time to use those power weapons. You don't have to be as knowledgeable with those power weapons anymore. And 343 really, for whatever reason, just completely neutered the game. They really toned it down quite a bit to make it more appealing to newer players. Call of Duty, same thing. I go back to Modern Warfare 2, COD 4. In the PvP part of it, you can definitely see where they've completely eliminated so much of the skill gap that used to be there. They've completely lowered the time to kill. And then starting with like Modern Warfare 3, they started giving you all these little gadgets that you can use to get kills. Black Ops 2 is the same thing. And so basically what you have is people throw down their 5 claymores and their 17 shock mines, and they just go hide in a corner. And by the time you actually have to get to that person to have a gunfight, you've got to run through like all these secondary items. And by the time you get there, it's like you're down on your health and they just take you out, or they just hide and everybody camps. And it's just really frustrating. They put all these kill streaks in and all these very easy to acquire methods for newer players who might not be as skilled to get kills in the game, so that they feel good and they don't leave the game and quit playing the game. Halo and Call of Duty, you can definitely see they've done that. Destiny, obviously, as a AAA title, is a huge example of very simplified content, very simple game mechanics for the younger generation to pick up. And the players just anymore, new players, they don't want to learn how to play the game. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to do the grind, so to speak. They don't want to learn how to use the weapons. Even Battlefield is going in this direction with Battlefield Hardline. They're making it more like Call of Duty, easier to just jump in and play and know what to do. Whereas with I was a long-time Battlefield 3 player, absolutely loved it because you had a lot of skill in that game with the weapons, especially with the sniper rifles. You had to know your bullet drop, you had to know your recoil patterns on all your guns. There was definitely a skill gap there with the game, and they're trying to eliminate that in pretty much all of these new games that are coming out. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to expect more of the same because the model is working. The model is definitely working. How many people play Destiny? How many people bought Destiny? How many people are going to probably buy Halo 5? How many people still buy Call of Duty? These companies are going after this younger generation, this younger market. They want to hook them now. So like what they did with us when they, like Bungie did with Halo in 2003, 2002, they hooked us and then they had us for the next decade. They had that paying customer base. And so what they're doing is they're trying to do the same thing now. They're trying to hook those young kids with the parents who can buy them the video games and who will buy them the $60 game every 3 months. Even if it's the same cut and paste content, they're going to buy them the exact same game every 3 months and spend the $60, and they're going to make all their money. And the problem is, though, is you have this new generation doesn't have the expectations that our generation has. They're not expecting a good game with story components and lots of content and, a lot of variety. They're just expecting a very simple experience, like their mobile games they're buried in on their cell phone, with their friends. That's all they want. They just want a very simplified experience that doesn't require a lot of skill. It doesn't require a large learning curve, where they can just go in and play with their couple of buddies. And like I said, it's like Destiny. You get on with a couple friends and go shoot aliens. That's what kids want now. They don't want anything complicated. And I unfortunately think gamers my age, what we're probably going to have to do is leave this console thing behind. I think personally is what's going to wind up happening, is because I don't see anything changing. You're going to be getting these watered down AAA games. There's going to be a lot of DLC. There's going to be a lot of pre-order crap. I think the only thing that us as older generation gamers really can do is go back to PC, go back to PC games, because those seem to be the only area where you can still get some serious content with your games. So that ultimately I think is going to be our solution. And it just makes me kind of sad because to see what's happening with video games in general, because I do enjoy playing games. I do really enjoy the games that tell you a good story. I don't expect to ever play another game like the Mass Effect series. I just don't, unfortunately. Even BioWare, they're like my last hope. They're working on Mass Effect 4, but it's like almost don't want them to make it because I'm just afraid it's not going to live up to expectations. But I don't know. I have a small bit of hope because Dragon Age was still really good. And it seems like BioWare, and there's a couple little smaller studios still available that seem to. They're not quite yet ready to jump in and cater to this younger generation. They're still making games, for us older gamers who like the story aspects and everything else. So, but I think that's our only hope is the small developers and the PC games, because obviously the big companies have realized the money is in the mobile game strategy, making a simplified game with the microtransactions, with DLC, and just basically putting it out there for the younger masses and letting them eat it up. The simple, the mindless games, and just letting them go out there and do their thing. That seems to be the new model that they are following, and unfortunately, it kind of sucks. At least for us older gamers who still expect to get some good content in our games. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, what you think overall, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about young people. I know a lot of young people who are still, into they enjoy the more mature games. They enjoy, the games that require some thought process. The problem is those people are just very few and far between nowadays. It's just, that's to me that's a fact, and that's the numbers. The numbers don't lie on that. The monetary numbers that these companies are pulling from these kids, the amount of money these mobile games are making, that just tells me that there is that definitely that generation gap, and definitely these people that are willing to, that don't care about having to get very good content games anymore. They just want these watered down, shallow experiences. And I guess that's okay. That's the way the world is turning now, but I don't like it. And I know there's people like me out there who don't like it either. And I'll just hold on hope that BioWare is going to come through with Mass Effect 4, and some of these smaller developers will keep making games for gamers like me. That's about the only hope that I have left. If not, guys, I'm probably going to honestly, I'd say next year after I save up some money, I'm probably just going to reinvest and buy a better PC and really soup it up, and probably go back to playing PC games, because that just seems to be where most of the mature and gaming crowd is going to have to go to. I'm not even going to get into how the younger gaming crowd is ruining multiplayer games in general, just with all the garbage that gets spewed in chat and talk and in the forums. How you can definitely tell there's been an inflow of the younger crowd who has no respect, and they just spout off at the mouth and say the most ridiculous, hateful stuff. So that would be for another video. But overall, I've been babbling now for 20-some minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts on this, what you think about it, if you like the direction this is going in. Overall, I don't, as I've said many times, and it just seems to be, unfortunately, the direction gaming is going in now, and this generational gap is definitely, in my opinion, it's ruining gaming in general. So expect to get more watered down games with day one DLC and day one microtransactions and all kinds of other stuff. And all we can really do is hope for the best and I guess expect the worst. Anyways, guys, it's been TechnoViking23. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments below, and I will see you again next time.